Hello and welcome to B2B Revenue Leaders. I'm your host, Dustin. As always, this episode is brought to you by Testimonial Hero. When you say it, it's marketing. When your customers say it, it's social proof. Testimonial Hero helps you scale your testimonial and case study program so you can close trust gaps with your buyers. On this episode, I'm joined by Göös, who is the head of marketing at The Shelf. And we're talking about the creator economy. Christine has worked across B2B and B2C, so we unpack the differences a little bit and we talk about what they can learn from each other. On to the episode. Hey, Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one because we're going to be talking about influence marketing, the creator economy, all stuff that I feel like a lot of people in B2B in particular talk about, but maybe don't do that much. So I think we'll unpack.
I think it's such a nascent category. For sure.
It is, yeah. So let's maybe start there. Like, people have heard the creator economy and all of this and like creator marketing. How do you define that in the B2B space?
I think that's $1 billion question, right? And whoever gets it right first will reap the rewards. I think in the context of B2B marketing, we are quickly moving towards this space where B2B and B2C tactics are converging because, again, we know we're still selling to people, and especially the digital and social ecosystem has changed really rapidly. In B2B, it's the same thing. When I got started in B2B marketing back in, I want to say 2016, it was really easy to throw some paid spend behind a digital campaign and see those leads come in. We all know that's not the case anymore, but people are still increasingly online. We've never consumed more content than today. I'm even consuming B2B best practices on TikTok. There are a few creators that I follow that I find really insightful. And so I think the creator economy in the context of B2B marketing, it is finding those trusted voices within different industries, within different niches, and then tying the brand message or your brand message or feature launch or product launch or whatever it may be to their story, and using the creator as almost like a Trojan horse into their community, because we're not seeing too many. I've maybe seen one or two B2B creator campaigns on LinkedIn to date. So it's a really new category. It's a Wild West. There are no rules. And so people are still trialing it out. But I think it's going to be the next frontier of brand marketing and awareness, and maybe even conversions for B2B as a whole.
Yeah, I think one thing you mentioned there that's really interesting is back in the day, I started out around the same times, like early 2010s. And yeah, you would put X amount of dollars into Google Ads and you would get X amount of dollars back. And it was really easy and was like printing money at the time. But you're right, it's not the same anymore. But I feel like where I'm going here is a lot of, especially C-suite or leaders, are still stuck in that mindset of marketing is I put money in, I get money out right away. So it can be hard to get the creator influencer play going. So do you think that's the case? Like C-suite just not coming to terms with that, or
I think it is the case across the board. If you look at Fortune 500 companies, if you look at B2B marketing, that typically trails to, even, at least in my opinion, maybe trail a little bit behind to what's happening in B2C, because the pressure for instant results and revenue oftentimes with these huge publicly traded companies is pushing them to innovate at a faster cycle than what we're seeing in B2B marketing. But it's absolutely true. And I had a really interesting conversation around this a couple weeks back. I was at Cannes Lions. It's an advertising festival. And I was at a dinner seated next to, I think he is the global chief creative officer for Deloitte Digital. And we were discussing this. I was bringing up the fact that how there's this knowledge gap in the C-suite between what could be done with social and creator marketing and influencers versus what is being done today. And he's been in the business for a while. He said it's the exact same sort of crux that we're seeing, the crossroads of like when digital first started. I want to say like back in 2008, 2009, it was the same thing where you had these early adopters and people who were experts in digital saying, hey, you have to invest in your digital customer journey, and you have to have your landing pages, and you have to have your conversions, your SEO. And it felt like the C-suite did not really grasp those things for a long time. And so we're at that same sort of cycle right now with social media, even though it has been around. But the first sort of era of social media was the easiest paid performance you could do, right? And even if today maybe some of those things are more of the vanity metrics that were shown to clients, of course there was results were there. Otherwise, we would not be or would not have been spending. But I think we're at that same spot where C-suite is still playing with the playbook that worked maybe 4-5 years ago, and we're not there anymore. And so it's this push-pull chicken and the egg, getting to a place where we have enough understanding in the C-suite. And let me give you an example of that. Elf Cosmetics, who is an absolute renegade as it comes to TikTok marketing and social, and their CMO, Corey Marquisato, I love her. She's a really great follow on LinkedIn as well, a great marketer, but she's really understood what social can do for your brand. And if you look at the stock price performance, it's completely aligned with them ramping up their social and influencer marketing efforts, because that's where the audiences are. They're there on B2C. Everybody's on LinkedIn. I spend more time on LinkedIn than I spend on any other channel. And the fact that no creator marketing is being directed towards me is still, it's understandable, but astounding at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny because LinkedIn slowly tried to enable that in good ways and bad ways. Like they had their creator mode, which didn't do a whole lot in my opinion, but they have like their thought leader ads, which are trying to find a way. But you're right, you haven't really seen anyone crack that. I think there's certain people out there and certain companies who are giving it a try, but it's usually more with internal employees as the mouthpiece, as the thought leaders. And I think part of it is it's difficult to understand the ROI and pricing. So I've been approached before by creators saying, hey, do you want to partner for this? And it's just really hard to tell like what their audience is. I don't care if it's big, but is it the right people? Are they going to interact? So how should marketers maybe think through that to dip their toes in and maybe test this?
Look, honestly, if you want to be a first mover in anything, you have to assume some level of risk. It's the same thing as once when Instagram first got started, we had our first Instagram influencers. Obviously, tapping into that, there would be some level of risk, but there's also a higher level of reward because it is such a new thing. You're likely to yield much higher results and engagement too. I think few things that I would look at is just overall, I feel like LinkedIn influencers, the ones that are very successful, they get a lot of engagement. And so they have a lot of people, the same people in the comments, they're discussing and debating. And you see a lot of that reciprocity that we've maybe lost on these bigger platforms on Instagram. It's becoming more one way. So I would look at community and engagement rates at one. I don't think there are benchmarks just yet to like how high those should be. I would maybe off the top of my head, maybe look for somebody with at least 5% engagement rate. It could be higher if they have smaller communities, because again, right now we're not playing with these sort of B2C influencer numbers. But what is interesting is that, so we actually just wrapped a piece of research on LinkedIn and B2B influencing, and we heard that 49% of creators, B2C traditional creators, I'm not now talking about SaaS or these sort of new breeds popping up on LinkedIn, they're actually planning on increasing their presence on LinkedIn over the next 12 months. It's because they're seeing better engagement, they're seeing better brand response. So a lot of them are actually using LinkedIn DMs to get brand deals than for other channels, which I think is also really interesting. And I know that LinkedIn is also investing into this. So I do think we're going to start seeing consumer campaigns on LinkedIn at a much wider scale before we're going to start seeing B2B, because in B2B, we're so cautious. We might not know how to go about that. And I think there's even less expertise in B2B marketing teams as it relates to influencers for a very natural reason, right? We've never tapped into those before.
Yeah, I think what'll be interesting too is the B2C brands that come in and start trying this will probably have more interesting ad creative ideas and takes because they're used to taking a bit more risks. To me, that's what has always caught me on the influencer side, more so on B2B, is I know it's always a pay to play thing. Like I know the person's getting paid, but I feel it affects me better when it at least seems genuine or it's providing value. But mostly what I see on LinkedIn is someone writes something you can tell the marketer at the other company wrote, and then at the end they have a little sponsored post asterisk. So what should B2B maybe be thinking about to actually create content that people like seeing and will have impact?
I think it should come from the same place of how best consumer influencer briefs are built. So you want to be able to give a unique enough playground for the creator to play in. Again, these people are creative by nature. They have a lot of great ideas on how to bring your brand product messaging to life. So firstly, I would involve them in the briefing process. So maybe instead of coming to them saying, here's the ready brief, our C-suite has already signed off on it, you just need to execute, bring them on board and have a workshop and talk through what your KPIs are, what the product or report or whatever you're going to be launching with them is all about. What are the key messages? And then let the creator tell you what's the best format. Maybe for someone, it is a video ad. Maybe you'll do a carousel. Maybe somebody else is better with just really provocative text-only pieces of content or posts. So really bringing them in and using them as a consultant and an advisor. That way it feels native to their audience too. I think one of the best and quite frankly, only B2B influencer campaigns that I saw at a wider scale was, I believe it was Sprout Social's, it was the State of Social report that they commissioned a series of social media B2B influencers that I follow. And those pieces were popping up all over my feed. And I thought it was really well executed because, again, it was a value. It wasn't like an ad for you to buy Sprout Social, but rather to download that report, and was very successful in my opinion. Again, towing that line of what's authentic to the audience, but then also value adding. I think that's where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, I think the authenticity piece, especially because there's people who I follow where it's weird. You can read what they write in their voice. If you've heard them on a podcast, you heard them on video, and then you read this ad and you're like, that is not them. Like,
Oh, for sure.
This is someone else. I know we talked a lot about the creator and influencer side, but I know just in
Right.
general, content is an area you focus on heavily
Yeah.
on multiple channels in B2B, in B2C.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what have you been borrowing from either one? What have you been taking from your B2C arsenal and putting into B2B, and vice versa when it comes to creating content?
I think I'm in this sort of everlasting battle of having started on the consumer side. I was a creative copywriter for many years, worked in an array of big brands, and also dipped my toes into that world occasionally through consulting. I absolutely love that world. And I think what B2B marketing still is largely missing is brand building in many instances. And I think it's especially because the B2B has always been there, but it used to be about this sort of traveling sales guy going door to door right before. And then on the onset of digital, that kind of, it coincided with that time of crazy venture backed SaaS companies and 10xing your growth. And so we were thrown into that whirlwind at the same time as performance media, programmatic, and paid social was born. And so I think that was like a perfect storm of going tactics first versus brand first. And I think what I try to borrow from my consumer work and from that side is just, how can I find ways to break through that are intelligent, that tell a story, that are more, that have an emotional hook versus just doing that playbook of like, how do we drive a lead through the funnel? I think that thing is broken. I think it's dead. I think we're never going back to that. And to give you a very concrete example of that, so it's not just marketing jargon. So at Billion Dollar Boy, where I lead US marketing for the agency. We're a creator marketing agency. And so we've been around for a decade, but we are not the biggest fish in the pond. We've never took venture funding. We're not part of larger networks. And so obviously that means that our marketing budgets don't look like something that our competitors would, who do have that venture backing, right? So I cannot throw millions at the problem. So I need to have the best message. And I think this is all credit to our CMO, Becky Owen, who is just a brilliant strategist, brilliant marketing mind. But we've built a program where we come out with original perspectives and research on things that we know that our clients are thinking about, the brands, the industry, the creator economy as a whole is thinking about. And we might not always be first to market, but we always have the most original point of view on that. For example, when this whole AI hype came to be, all of our competitors launched their AI units and AI software solutions in 2 months. Okay, yeah, this is like probably mostly marketing. We see what you're doing there. And we actually told our team to let's hold back. And we spent 6 months in stealth mode just researching the actual impact of AI and Gen AI in creator content and creator economy. And that's when we came out with our innovation unit Muse and worked with an array of really great forward-thinking clients like Lipton, Xiaomi, Versace, Loewe. And created campaigns that really proved sort of our thesis on AI being used as a muse to creativity and not as the end result and not as something that's going to replace creators. And again, coming at it from our perspective really helped us stand out. And we're regularly outperforming all of our competitors in terms of volume of PR, awareness, and earned speaking engagements. And we're really making noise in the industry in this sort of David versus Goliath way. And I think that's all rooted in great storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's the storytelling piece for sure. And there's also something I've mostly worked at small companies that were, if they were venture backed, it was minimal amounts. But there's also this, if you have too much money, there's this crush where you can just do things poorly and get away with it. It is
Oh,
a
for
little bit of
sure.
it
Yeah.
at big companies
Yeah.
where like, oh, I have a $50 million budget. It's okay if I burn 500 grand. Whereas if I burnt 500 grand of my budget, I would have no budget for the year.
Exactly.
So it really hems you in and really helps
Yeah.
there. Just one topic on the AI thing, because it has to come up on anything kind of content related. And I agree with kind of the arc you saw where early we thought, oh shit, this is going to take everyone's job and everything's going to be AI. And then now it's AI is this kind of assistant to help you come up with ideas and refine ideas. So how are you actually using it in your day-to-day job now?
Sure. So I'm a writer by trade, and I've always said that if I have one superpower, it's writing. And so when AI came to market, I was obviously early in experimenting with ChatGPT or Google Gemini, and I quickly realized that it is just that it's an assistant that I only use when I need to do internal summaries or non-value adding writing. If it's anything that needs to have my voice, my tone, and my perspective, I do not run it by AI because I felt that to date it cannot replicate my voice in a manner that I would say that's actually me. And I find just, again, I'm a linguist, I majored in linguistics. So for me, writing and language is processing information, it's innovation, it's creative thinking. And so I think for me to put something out there in the world that I care about, it has to come from me. But again, for the sort of more of the production side of things, it's excellent. And specifically for creators, some of the work that we've done is, for example, before, if you wanted to create an ad, for example, for a luxury bag where you have the creator, but then something supernatural happens. There's a giant in the video who comes and snacks the bag. That's actually our Loewe campaign. You would have had to put so much money into post-production to be able to bring that to life. And right now we're able to commission an AI production creator who is an expert using all these different tools and platforms. And there's just boundless creativity of how you can actually tell that story. But we're still working with craft people and we're still working with creators to make that happen.
Yeah, it's funny, we're in the same boat. Like we are a video production agency. And I've got asked that on sales calls as recent as last week. So do you use AI for the videos? And the answer is no, we would never do that because it can't tell a story. But it is really great if someone's like looking off to the side of it and you have to correct their gaze or to like auto edit out ums and ahs. Like some of this just like grunt work that you would have had to do before. It's great at saving that time there.
Yeah. And I think as a podcaster, I even wish that some of the production tools were further along. I'm sure you also feel the pain. Yeah. You feel the pain. I tried a couple different AI podcasting tools and I went back to just recording and then editing manually on Adobe because that was my holy grail. So I don't think we're even there yet with a lot of the tools.
No, we've tested them all and we keep testing. Can this actually pull social clips? But it always is at the wrong time or cuts out. I think the closest I've seen so far, just to geek out on the podcasting side, is some of the stuff Descript is adding is actually pretty good to the point where we're actually using it for the podcast. So they're the only ones I feel who have gotten there so far, but who knows, 3-4 years down the road, it might be better. But I think always there's going to be stuff that you can tell is AI or just fake or manufactured. So that authentic storytelling thing, I think, is really never going to go away.
Yeah, because I think you need that friction, and you need that. You might have a track that is not, the syntax is not perfect, and the
Yeah.
story might be a little sprawling, but what the person is saying is so captivating and interesting. It's something that you need to be human to pick up on that, because it
Yeah.
breaks the rules or clashes something. And so that's why I'm not really worried about AI, at least as it relates to creativity or marketing or storytelling. It's just going to be another tool in our toolbox, and we'll just all have the same challenges as we've always had, and we'll spend half a day debating the background colors on a social post.
We've all been there debating those
Yeah.
tiny little things. So I know we covered creator economy, content, influence marketing. I'm sure we could keep going on a bunch of them, but if
Mhm.
people do want to connect, learn more about you, your company, where should they reach out to?
Sure. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, Christine Göös. So feel free to follow and connect with me. We are also coming out with a new season of House of Content, our podcast on
Nice.
culture, brands, and creators. And season 4 is going to be out now in September. So listen to us on Apple or wherever you find your podcasts.
Awesome. So we'll include those links for listeners. And I think this episode's going live in September. So perfect timing, right when the podcast launches. And Christine, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. My key takeaway is around how early stage the creator economy is in B2B. So for those who have been active on LinkedIn, it's been a bit of a buzzword. You hear people talking about it a lot. There's been a lot of noise, but it's really still early days and we're all still figuring it out. So as Christine mentioned, it's time to experiment and really get out there and be an early adopter. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or comment on the episode on Spotify. And as always, I'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode.